Hi, everyone. Welcome to the first episode of Gems and Joy. I am so excited to be having these live streaming conversations with thought leaders around the world who are truly committed to helping female entrepreneurs thrive inside and out. Oh my goodness, I'm excited about this first episode because my first guest for my first episode is Sabrina Garba. And the pearls that this woman is going to drop, I hope you are ready to be taking mad notes. Sabrina is a well-respected, holistic cultural strategist and public speaker who's passionate about helping create environments where people thrive and reach their highest potential, also known as accelerating genius. And that is what we are going to be talking about today. So without further ado, I am going to conversation, and hopefully the technology is going to actually work. I think it's working. I see it loading. And we are live. Hello, Sabrina. How are you?
I am so great. How are you doing today?
Oh my goodness, I am wonderful and much better talking to you right now.
Thank you so much for having me on, Joy. I'm so excited to be here today.
Okay, so I don't want to waste any time. I want to go ahead and start kind of like jumping in. But for people that are watching that are kind of getting to know you for the first time, let me just take a moment to just sing your praises, if I may.
Yeah.
So Sabrina has just given me, oh my goodness, like a wealth of knowledge and insight into not just like being a thought leader, but really like refining that expertise as a thought leader. And I know that's one of the things that you really like thrive and excel at doing, but you have such an amazing skill set. Like when people hear holistic cultural strategist, that is like a huge concept.
Yeah.
And I was wondering if you take a minute to kind of like tell us, how did you get to this level of expertise in your life?
Yeah, I think the really interesting thing is sometimes we forget how all of our experience and our past put together can come together to make something magical that people never thought of before. And
Right.
so I started my career knowing that I loved communication and culture. So how people communicated with each other based off of their cultural background. And I also realized that I loved messaging. I loved writing. I loved
Mm.
speech writing in particular, right? Um, and I started to do some work around storytelling, specifically with women's issues, women's rights, reproductive rights. And that landed me an incredible gig at a public affairs firm, working under some of the heavy hitters like Dee Dee Myers, who was Clinton's first press secretary,
Oh, wow.
and Christina Reynolds, who was the deputy chief of communication for Hillary Clinton's campaign recently.
Oh,
So
goodness.
yeah,
Okay.
it was mind blowing, but my love of culture, my love of storytelling really led me there, led me to study, to actually move abroad, learn a different language, work in a different
Mm.
culture, and then come back and run this institute that was focused on cross-cultural communication, research, and strategy work. And I loved being there, but I started to realize something. My skill set in public affairs, my skill set in speech writing, and my skill set understanding cultural backgrounds and organizational culture really helped me to be a holistic cultural strategist. So I can look at an
Mm.
organization and I can look at the demographics they have in that organization. I can look at the messaging they're using for the folks that they're talking to, and also help them to learn how to be experts as people within the organization. So those,
Wow.
just from the things that I've brought together to kind of create a messaging around, right? So I'll just give you one concrete example of what that looks like. You go into an organization and they have a diverse group of people there at that organization. Sometimes they're not sure how that will impact the environment within the organization. Well, there are some people that really focus on organizational culture. This is what we know we need to do to make everyone happy here. Um,
Ah,
but what I also can do is say, I know what the value sets are of each group and how you can move forward with your organizational culture with keeping in mind what those value sets are.
that's beautiful.
Yeah.
So it's like, Okay, I mean, my goodness. So this is something that you haven't just done in in one country. You've done this globally
Yes.
and intricately. It's not just looking at one aspect of the organization, but actually getting into the nuts and bolts of the people and how they're going to interact with each other and communicate with each other and better understand themselves even within the organization,
Yeah,
within the organism that is the organization.
exactly. Self-awareness
This,
is at the basis of everything we do.
wow. So, I mean, it's a living, breathing thing,
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's,
that's beautiful.
I love it.
Okay, so I'm starting to get it. I believe that other people are too, like how you're taking this and like turning into this beautiful method of really like accelerating genius. And I know that that can sound very catchy. So I want to get into the nuts and bolts of that as well. Like when you say accelerating genius, what are you talking about? What does that really mean?
Yeah. I think a lot of us don't necessarily understand that we have the opportunity to accelerate our path to learning and to increasing our knowledge and our expertise. A lot of times when people define an expert, they say someone who has dedicated time to a particular topic or issue or
Mm.
area of work. And that word time is often conveyed to mean it's going to take me years to become an expert in XYZ.
Mm.
And what I ask people to do is just to commit a certain amount of time constantly towards their expertise so that they can accelerate that genius. It doesn't have to be 3 years from now until you get on the stage to talk about what you're great at and what you know and what you're passionate about. You can do it in 3 months. Matter of fact, you could probably do it in 60 days.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's for women in particular,
Yeah.
because I definitely want to, use Jibs and Joy to help women get some of the answers to these questions.
Yeah.
Like why is that particularly important to women?
Yeah. So I focus on women because of a couple things. A lot of the times as women, we are attached to limited beliefs that someone else put on us, not things that we
Mm,
innately just have, right?
right.
And so
Yeah.
as women, we need to peel those layers back. They say that a man is more likely to apply for a job when he only has like 70% of the criteria. And if women don't feel like we have 100%, we won't apply, right? And that's
Whoa.
ridiculous. And that
Wait,
man,
can you repeat that? Can
yes.
you? Because I think that needs
Yeah,
repeating.
so they say that men, if they have 70% and sometimes even less than the criteria listed on a job description, they'll apply,
Uh-huh.
right? And most likely get that job. Whereas women,
Wow.
we feel like if we don't have every single thing listed, we won't apply. And that's a limited belief and not understanding and embracing our own expertise. So many times I have women who are so used to defining themselves also by their roles, right? We do that a lot. I'm
Mm.
a daughter. I'm a mother, I'm a wife. We define ourselves by our role, but not what we're great at. Okay. So, because when you're a mother and when you're a wife, you are a chief operating officer of a house, right? So, like,
Yeah.
and even that is still a role. What makes you
Mhm.
good at that, right? So, I meet women all the time and they introduce themselves to me and they say, I am the CEO of X, Y, and Z, even at the CEO level, right? Or I
Mhm.
am the vice president of human resources at this organization. And what I want to
Okay.
empower women to do is to say, I'm an expert at X, Y, and Z. Because you have to grow your
Ooh.
platform beyond the role that you're in currently, right?
Oh, okay. I love this.
Yeah,
So it's not just going by the title, because the title doesn't necessarily explain what your expertise is, what your element is, how you excel at something. It's just saying, "Oh, okay, hi, like
exactly.
I have this role, this is my
Yeah,
title," but it doesn't explain that, oh, you've got this understanding of this type of strategy. You're a genius at this particular type of thing.
exactly. That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
Wow. Like this is like a mind shifting, like I don't even know that I don't think that they even teach that in school.
No,
Like I never hear it this in the rhetoric and the zeitgeist in any kind of way.
they don't teach it. And the truth of the matter is this. When you come to an organization and you bring your expertise,
Hmm.
you are adding so much value. And we all know now people don't stay at most organizations for more than 3 years, right? Or if you're an entrepreneur, you pivot every few years anyway, right? And you want people to be
Right.
able to recognize you for what you're brilliant at, not for what you did for your organization.
I feel like light bulbs just went
Yeah.
off. All over the place. Like bing, 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 bing. And especially with you saying that, like, so many times women don't even take a
No.
chance on themselves because they're looking at the list and they're saying, I don't check all these boxes. So if they're not realizing where their genius actually is, then they don't know where their opportunities are
Agree.
sometimes.
For sure.
Oh my
They
goodness,
don't know.
this is amazing. Okay. Okay. So this is part of what you're helping unlock for people.
Yes.
Okay. So let me talk a little bit about, go back to that kind of like that
Yeah.
self-awareness is key, you know, because when you talk about that, I think that this is great. And I'm actually taking notes as we talk. So when it comes to that self-awareness, what are some of the things that you help people do to kind of like get more tapped into being aware of themselves and aware of their unlimited potential and even the boxes that they've been putting themselves in?
Yeah. So anytime someone enters a room with me in a space around accelerating your genius, I ask them to do two things. One is to be fearless. And that's
Mm.
addressing all of the fear that you have that's limiting you. So every time you get in the moment where you're like, why am I doing this? The person next to me might have more experience than me. What do they think of me? I want you to throw that away. This is a no fear zone. When you are not, when you don't take a look at your fear, you're limiting. But it's great to keep a note of that, right? So when I say I want you
Mm.
to throw it away, I want you to list it, know what came up in your head, acknowledge it, and say thank you for that, but I don't need you anymore, right? Because it's important. You don't need it, right? But you need to know what's holding you back. And then the next thing is be audaciously kind to yourself. We are so challenged when it comes to talking about ourselves positively, right?
Oh, yeah.
And
Why is that?
I think it's because we're afraid of what other people are going to think.
Oh, like you might come off as
That's
arrogant,
part of it.
right?
Yeah.
Full of yourself, or they, because is that kind of one, maybe one of like the primary things, like what you would think that we're with ourselves all the time, like being able to actually say, I am good at XYZ should be a natural
Yeah.
thing, right?
But some of that challenge is self-awareness, right? Not being able, not taking the time to actually sit down and write a list, which is something I always make people do, is sit down and
Mm.
write a list of what am I good at? What am I good at? Like you have these moments where yesterday I wrote a speech and I did it really quickly and it was perfect, right? And I danced around the kitchen because I was like, I'm good as hell at this. Oh my goodness. And I want people to start to take note of that so that when someone asks them, what are you good at? And even if they don't ask them to say, like, I'm really great at speech writing and I love doing it because that is the only way that other people can
Oh,
see your light if you really see it.
yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. So audaciously kind
Yes.
to yourself. I mean, that in and of itself, that is such a bold
Yep.
statement. Audaciously kind to yourself, which means you also are willing to celebrate yourself, like you were saying, that dancing in the kitchen
Yes.
type of thing,
Yes. You
right?
have to do that.
Oh, I love this. So, okay. And we talked about the, you know, like going ahead and getting self-aware and really putting that list down and tapping into things. But it's like, let's talk about that
Yeah.
fear a little bit more too, because I feel like that's the thing that creeps up and it manifests itself in so many different ways. I mean, you can end up having fear of succeeding or never succeeding. And then once you start succeeding, then you start getting fear around the success and like maybe the success is going to go away if you're going to plateau
Yep.
and things like that. So how can that tapping into this genius, like accelerating genius, how can that help with those waves of fear? Because I know they're constant, they keep coming, they ebb and they flow. How does that kind of help you navigate that?
Yeah. So the thing about accelerating genius is one, having a very clear picture about what you know, what you're good at, and what opportunities are out there for you. I have something that I call the KPO, and that's where your knowledge, passion, and opportunity strategically meet. Um, and then and that's important for you to know. There are three bubbles, concentric circle that help you boil down to what your expertise is. But you also need to know all of the things that are out there in your word, the zeitgeist, right, for you that are great,
Right.
right, for you and that you can do. And then if you're committed to growing that expertise, I always tell people to track it. It's a practice. It's almost like a spiritual practice in a way, I like to say, where you're daily looking at yourself and saying, I was better because I did X, Y, and Z today, right? And not even I was better because I noticed that I did X, Y, and Z different today, right? Or I had an aha moment, or I made a connection that in the past I wouldn't have been able to make today, right? And so as you see yourself getting those wins every single day, you build up your confidence. And I don't think we necessarily do that. We drone on learning and learning and learning, but never being able to see those incremental wins that we have.
Oh, it's beautiful. So, okay, one of the things that is getting me really excited about this as I'm hearing everything is the fact that, we know, and we've seen this, and we were talking about this in lots of different ways across the board, that so many people are getting left away from the table, right?
Yeah.
They don't have a seat at the table. They're not in the conversation, not a part of the zeitgeist.
Yeah.
And that includes women, people of color, like just people that are marginalized. So as you talk about this, like actually, celebrating yourself, being aware, like making that list, how does this help people actually like get that seat at the table and maintain that seat at the table?
Yeah. So I started focusing on accelerating genius from first a corporate perspective, and then really wanted individuals to be able to access it as well. But what I recognize is that we often don't get a seat at the table because we don't believe that we deserve it. And the truth of the matter is, when you position yourself as an expert and as a thought leader, everyone wants you at their table. Now, I always like to talk a little bit. It's true. I think there are, and I think that some of that idea of like, I can't get a seat at the table, some of that is some of your limited beliefs, right? Nobody can pull the chair up under Buzoma St. John. You can't pull the chair from her, right? And there's a reason for that. It's because she knows what her agenda is, she knows what her expertise is, and she knows where she's a leader. She's self-aware enough to know that you can't take this seat from me. And so my program is about putting people in a position where they are developed to be leaders that no one can take a seat from.
This is beautiful. Okay, so is someone that's, and let's give like the scenario. Like you got someone that they're a high achiever.
Yeah.
They've been doing the work. They've never really positioned themselves as like a thought leader before. They just, they do the job. People respect them. They're known to get the job done, but they haven't started to put themselves out there in that way. Like, what are some of the first steps that you would advise them taking if they're going to be like, okay, I'm going to go from just doing the work and showing up in that way to actually start to show up for myself in this different way and expand my presence, expand my image, expand myself as this leader? What's like one of the first primary steps that you would advise that they take?
Yeah. So what would need to come before this is you really understanding what you're good at, because you've been doing. So I want everyone to take a good stock of actually what they have been doing, right? And what they're good at instead of just doing it, right? Because then that feeds in what I like to call your PVP, which is your personal values proposition, right? So you being able to say how you are unique in what you do based off of your fields of experience, what you've learned, what you've done that's different than other people. And then like pushing forward. Actually, Joy, you said this to me before, just keep moving, right? So the idea here is you need to start developing your material, developing your voice. So for us, the second half of what we really work on is developing your collateral, positioning yourself as a thought leader by being able to speak about yourself with authority, right? Really getting your presence together. What does that look like for you? Being able to ask those bold questions and knowing what you want. And so the first thing that you need to do is understand yourself, understand what you're great at, understand your expertise. And after that is shout it from the rooftops. Basically, develop collateral to do so. Develop things that back you up. And there's so many tools that I talk about that make it easy for you to do that and for you to get out there and connect with other people. Because at the end of the day, if you really want to be a thought leader, if that is your journey and what you desire to do, then that means you want to connect with people around an idea. And I started focusing on this from corporate to individual because I'm sick of seeing the same people over and over again. Okay.
Echo chambers, right?
Echo chambers. It is time to add a new perspective. It's time to add a new voice. It's time to add a new field of experience.
You know, I want to focus on something that you just said though, when you're like, to be a thought leader means that you want to connect with people around an idea. And I don't think that a lot of times it's talked about in that way. It seems to be more talked about like gain respect in this area, you know, like be lauded in this area, right? Like be put on a pedestal basically in this area so that everybody recognizes you this way and they like bow down to you type of thing. But that's not really connection, right?
No.
So when you're saying that, you're talking about something that's actually deeper and actually has like real benefit for people in a long-term way.
It's so easy for somebody to be like an automated expert, right? It's easy to do that. It's easy for someone to go, I know this, so I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. And this is what we should know. We see that a lot in a lot of our industries that are hard sciences, where it's just like, it's easy, right? When you're a thought leader, you have to also have connectedness. You also have to be able to communicate what you know. You have to be able to understand its connection to other people's experiences. I think, yes, it's great. I want people to be respected. I want people to get the acknowledgement that they deserve, but I also want them to be serving a greater purpose. You know, becoming a thought leader just to be talking is one of my greatest pet peeves. What are you saying? How are you shifting the landscape and the narrative? How are you making a difference in this world? And that's the thing for me. As a thought leader, it's about the difference and the impact that you're making, not about what you're saying. Because we know there are hundreds of thousands of influencers out here, right? You can do that, and you can continue to contribute to the noise and the messages and repeating what other people are saying. Not to say that influencers do that, but that can be what you want to do. Or you can be a thought leader who is shifting the narrative.
Ooh, that's powerful. And Lisa, thank you for kind of clarifying that, because I do think that gets lost for a lot of people, and they're kind of looking at it as, oh, okay, I need to get attention. So it's just, what do I do to get that attention? And it's not about what do I actually want to contribute? What kind of impact do I want to have? That's real influence, actually, at the end of the day. Like, to just get, look at me, look at me, look at me. Sure, that's influential in its way, but deep influence is actually that creating that connection and building those bridges with people. So, okay, it's like we've got a little bit of time left, and I don't want to end this before we talk about the program that you've built around this, that we've been talking about, this accelerating genius. Can you tell us like more about that, what you're doing with it, why you started it, and how people can get involved?
Yeah. So I started Accelerating Genius when I realized that the same voices were being heard over and over again around subject areas. And I kept meeting so many brilliant people, and women in particular, who did not know how to transition what they knew into a space where they felt confident about saying they were expert about what they knew, and then also about speaking about it as a thought leader. But I could see their light. And I realized someone needed to help them. And so I love leadership and development work. I've been doing that kind of work my whole career, and really just said, you know what? Someone needs to develop something to help people to see their light, and also help them to start to get those opportunities that are out there. And like, there's so many of them, right? So I developed this method called the Genius Acceleration Method. It's a 6-step method that takes you through 6 major milestones for you to, one, start to refine your expertise, because I think that that's critical. You have to have some type of substance. I'm not going to just tell you how to talk to people. I'm going to tell you how to grow your learning and refine it. And then that's the first half. And the second half really focuses on your presence, on you positioning yourself as a thought leader and developing the materials and collateral that you need for that. There's exciting opportunities in the course that allow for you to receive training directly on your presence. That's like public speaking courses and mini media training that's been given to government organizations. And as well, we also look at developing a roadmap for you. So it's a step-by-step process to getting you from your expertise. And even if you don't even know what that is, or if you know what it is but need to refine it, all the way through to you being able to position yourself as thought leader and, quite frankly, get paid for it. Because I believe in people being able to get more money and talking about things that they love, right?
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
So for someone that's listening, they're like, okay, this is what I need. I need this accelerating genius. I need to get started. I need to get started last week. How can they get involved in the program? How can they sign up?
Yeah. So there's a couple ways to get involved in the program. Right now, I am running an application for the program that's opening in November, and it's available at bit.ly/getaccelerated. So that is one way to find me. Another way to find me is I am doing a 5-day challenge, and it is a challenge called More Knowledge, More Money, to allow for people to figure out how to increase their knowledge and increase the amount of money that they want on Facebook. And so in order for you to find that, that's at bit.ly/more KPO.
Wonderful. Okay. So one of the things that we're going to do, like we're going to post this, I'll post tidbits of this on my Instagram as well as Facebook. And so we'll make sure that within the actual like description, we'll have links to the bit.lys so that people will be able to tap into that. And just so that anyone that wants to like find you off of Instagram also knows where to come find you, like, please give us all your socials. What's your socials?
Yeah. So I am at Sabrina K. Garba across all social media. And I can also be found at sabrinakgarba.com. I like to keep it simple.
Well, again, that's going ahead and falling in line with your message, which is, to go ahead and like have that thought leadership out there and be able to actually refine it, right? Like you need to be able to be found when you get refined. So I love this. Thank you, Sabrina, so much for being my first guest and sharing so much powerful insight. I mean, like just what you talked about with fear alone, with self-awareness, right? With actually like audaciously kind to yourself.
Yes.
That right there is a concept that just, I think, changes lives. And what you're talking about with accelerating genius, I think that some people are even going to find that what they thought they were doing is actually not their element at all. Like it's not what they should actually be dedicating themselves to. They'll actually tap into their true passion and purpose through programs like what you're doing.
Yes, it happens all the time, whether it's within, a corporation or organization or as an individual sitting entrepreneur, it happens all the time.
Oh, wonderful. So thank you so much. I know you got a busy day today, so I appreciate you taking time to sit with me and everybody that joined. And thank you so much, everyone who watched. We got so many like comments and hearts were just like popping up all over the place as you were dropping those pearls. So thank you again for everything and have a great day. And we'll be coming back in another month with another episode of Gems and Joy. And you can also follow Gems and Joy at Gems and Joy. That's with an X, Gems X Joy on Instagram, and the hashtag is Gems X Joy.
Thank you so much, Joy. I'm so grateful to be here.
Of course. Bye. Have a great day.